Australia goes to the polls in what's set to be one of the tightest races in years. In a season marked by record floods, droughts and wildfires, climate policy is taking centre stage in this election. Following in the footsteps of Alabama, and the US state of Missouri passes a near-total abortion ban. Terminations would be illegal after 8 weeks, with no exceptions allowed in cases of rape or incest. And the excitement builds in Tel Aviv ahead of the grand final of the Eurovision Song Contest. Israeli forces, though, on high alert in the wake of recent hostilities. An exclusive report from France 24's correspondents coming up later on in the programme. Welcome back to the newsroom. I'm Julia Kim. First, voting is in full swing in Australia in one of the country's tightest elections to date. The centre-left Labour Party is tipped to narrowly defeat the ruling Conservative Liberal coalition. If Labour does win, that would make Bill Shorten the nation's 6th Prime Minister in as many years. 16 million Australians are expected to cast their ballot in today's compulsory federal vote. Tax reform and climate change dominating the campaign. Our correspondent in Sydney tells us the issues on voters' minds today.
I'm at a polling station in Sydney's inner west, and I wish you could smell what I can smell right now, because the sausage sizzle grill is fired up. That is the very Australian tradition of barbecuing sausages on election day. It's what we call the democracy sausage. So yes, I've been chatting to voters as they've been coming here to cast their votes and grab a bite to eat. And while many raised concerns about education, healthcare, the economy and affordable housing, the majority of people I spoke to said that the environment has really taken centre stage. Now, indeed, this election is being called the climate change election. It's the number one issue for many people, for undecided voters and for young voters aged 18 to 24. Now, Australia is one of the world's top greenhouse gas polluters on a per capita basis. So where do the two main parties stand? How do they compare? Well, the Liberals' climate policy keeps the country's current emissions reductions target at 26 to 28% by the year 2030. That falls short of what's needed to meet the Paris Agreement goals. The Labor Party, however, is more ambitious. It wants a 45% cut in carbon emissions and half of all cars to be electric by 2030. Now, Labor made sure that the climate emergency was the main focus in its final push for votes earlier this week. Bill Shorten said his party is ready to show the world that Australia is back in the fight and ready to do what it can, ready to do its part in the fight against global warming.
To the United Kingdom now, and after 6 short weeks, Brexit talks are dead in the water. Opposition Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn pulled the plug on cross-party negotiations, blaming the weakness and insecurity of Theresa May's government. As Conservative Party members circle her soon-to-be vacant position, Britain is still no closer to finalising its divorce from the EU.
There have been areas where we have been able to find common ground, but other issues have proved to be more difficult. And in particular, we haven't been able to overcome the fact that there isn't a common position in Labour about whether they want to deliver Brexit or hold a second referendum, which could reverse it.
The government has not moved its position fundamentally. There are fundamental disagreements. We want to have a customs arrangement with the European Union that protects jobs and trade, and we want to have a dynamic relationship on rights. We've put those views very strongly to the government, and the withdrawal agreement bill will be brought forward. I don't know what the contents of that bill will be. We haven't seen it.
Now, just days after the US state of Alabama signed into law the nation's harshest abortion bill, Missouri's Republican lawmakers are following suit. With an overwhelming majority, the state passed one of the most restrictive abortion bills in the country. Missouri wants to ban terminations after 8 weeks, with no exceptions allowed in cases of rape or incest. Kathy Clifford has this report.
Protesting against a bill seeking to ban abortions after 8 weeks of pregnancy. These women interrupted debate at Missouri's Republican-led House. The legislation was then passed by 110 to 44 votes.
Should a child, a life inside a mother's womb, be killed due to the actions of its parents? Should it be killed merely because it'll be an inconvenience to its parents or unwanted? The simple answer is no.
The bill would allow for abortion after 8 weeks, only in the case of medical emergencies, with no exception for rape or incest. Doctors who perform the procedure could face jail terms between 5 and 15 years.
I'm a social worker, and I've spent a lot of my career advocating for victims of sexual assault, rape, and incest, and the trauma that this is doing to the women that I've worked with and the families of this state, and how triggering all of these conversations are, is just unbearable.
It comes after Alabama passed the country's strictest anti-abortion state legislation earlier this week, placing a near-total ban on ending a pregnancy. Since the start of this year, 14 states have signed laws limiting access to abortion. So far, courts have blocked those bans as unconstitutional, meaning abortion remains legal in all 50 states under national law. The aim of many of these state laws is to set up court battles to eventually challenge the 1973 US Supreme Court Roe v. Wade ruling, which legalized the practice. Since taking office, Trump has appointed 2 conservative justices, with Republicans now dominating the Supreme Court 5-4.
Well, celebrating all things kitsch, camp and corny, the final of the Eurovision Song Contest kicks off in Tel Aviv at 7 p.m. GMT this Saturday night. But this year's edition has been mired in political controversy. Calls to boycott the event by the movement BDS resulted in the German parliament labelling the group as anti-Semitic on Friday. Meanwhile, Israeli authorities have been beefing up security in case of any attack. This exclusive report from our team on the ground.
Palestinian colours proudly on display in the heart of Tel Aviv.
Exactly a year ago, while 52 Palestinians were slaughtered on the Gaza border, Tel Avivians were celebrating Netta Barzilai's win in the Eurovision here. During the same time,
these Israeli activists hope to shine a light on these contrasting priorities. For them, it is impossible to stand by and say nothing while Israel benefits from Eurovision. Protester numbers are low, and they are often heckled by others who follow the demonstration.
Palestine not exist, my friend. Don't believe the Palestinians, they're lying. They're lying every time.
It's not easy for these boycott, divestment, sanctions activists. Their call for boycott of Israel and Eurovision and against the occupation of Palestinian territory means they are a minority in Israel.
We are considered as traitors here, and we end up being persecuted as one.
Once you participate in such a competition in a country that has been occupying millions of people without any rights, you become a collaborator with those crimes.
Every year, Eurovision serves as a showcase for its host country. For the 2019 edition, Israel is putting security front and centre.
We're not taking any chances whatsoever. We want to prevent any incident, whether it's BDS activists or any terrorist threat from taking place. Our units are working in all the different locations.
With the upsurge of violence in Gaza over the last month, Israeli authorities are not taking any chances.
And finally, in Cannes, life meets art in Pedro Almodovar's new film. The festival only shows world premieres, but it's made an exception for the award-winning director. Released in Spain and Mexico in March, Pain and Glory has garnered almost universal acclaim. The autobiographical psychodrama stars Antonio Banderas and Penelope Cruz and is about the past catching up with the film director. Almodovar has 2 Oscars to his name, but has yet to win the top Palme d'Or prize at Cannes. Well, that's it for this edition, but for more on all the stories we've covered this hour, you can also head to our website on france24.com, where we'll also have the latest updates on the ongoing Australian federal election. That's all for me. Stay tuned in about 20 minutes' time. There's more news coming up.